nation. Chalk in hand, he's on a mission, shaping dreams with precision. Joseph, the English teacher.
Hi everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Around Scotland in recent weeks, a number of our mosques, our Islamic places of worship, have been attacked. And we're going to be looking at some news reports relating to that. Just to give you some background information, you may know that many people, particularly across England, have been very upset about the number of immigrants arriving into the UK. I'm not sure if that's why there's a high number of Islamophobic attacks these days, but whatever the reason, a number of our mosques have been attacked. Now, this is very sad, and it's also completely criminal. I think what's behind it is that some of these protesters are so angry that they're trying to channel their anger into something visible, because immigration at the moment is a hot topic. There's often disturbances outside of hotels where immigrants are being housed. Up and down the UK, many of our hotels are holding a lot of immigrants. Often there's protests outside and even sometimes some fights around them. You may have heard the other day that there was a synagogue attack. I think it was last month here in the UK, resulting in a few people dying. This is very, very sad. I'm not sure if that's all about immigration or if the reasons behind it were more related to events in the Middle East. But either way, it's appalling. It really is awful. And it really hurts people's feelings. Well, we're going to look at what's been happening in the Islamic community around Scotland in the last few months. It's very deeply upsetting to see people who are going to worship their God and being attacked, prohibited, or if the mosque, for example, is in a public place, some people are writing on the wall. Let's have a little look at some of the stories in the media from the last few weeks. Right, here we are. Now you can see here that there's a picture of a man. His name is Hamza Youssef, and he was Scotland's first minister up until, I think, last year. Now, this story is from the Scottish newspaper, the Herald, and Hamza tells us, this is just his surname, Hamza Youssef. He says, Glasgow mosque graffiti shows anti-Muslim hate is being normalised. Let's just continue. Hamza Youssef has said that a graffiti attack on Glasgow's main mosque shows anti-Muslim hate is being normalised. Now, let me just tell you, first of all, the word graffiti in the UK, in the English language, is never positive. I understand that in some countries it's an art form. Okay, here the word is always associated with something bad or something criminal, such as someone painting on the walls. You can see here a picture. If I just scroll down a little bit, SF, Scots First. Now you might think that looks quite harmless, but let's continue. It says here, Police have launched a probe after racially charged graffiti was discovered at Glasgow's Central Mosque on Adelphi Street. Well, the mosque actually sits on its own street, which is called, I think, Mosque Avenue, but this is the side of the mosque on Adelphi Street. It says the vandalism occurred between 5 p.m. on Sunday, 26th of October, and 9 a.m. on Monday, 27th of October. Former First Minister Youssef condemned the attack, highlighting the mosque's role in supporting the city during crises. Now, if we just move down here a little bit, it says the SNP, that's the Scottish National Party, MSP, member of the Scottish Parliament, posted on social media saying a Glasgow Central Mosque offered tea, coffee, and shelter for emergency workers during the Clutha disaster. That's when a helicopter collapsed in Glasgow city centre some years ago. They opened their doors to vaccinate us during the pandemic as well. Dreadful, but utterly predictable to see this vandalism as a result of anti-Muslim hatred being so normalised. And now we have the Glasgow Central Mosque statement as well. Let me just scroll up there. It says, we were deeply upset to find graffiti on the wall of the mosque today. Acts like this do not represent the values of Glasgow or Scotland. Our city is renowned for its warmth, diversity, and sense of community, and it is that spirit which will always prevail. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down here a little bit, and you can see here they've repeated just what they were saying. We're deeply upset to find graffiti on our wall. Acts like this do not represent the values of Glasgow or Scotland. So please Scotland confirmed the case is being treated as a hate crime. Now, this is where we're going to be looking at some of the other acts of vandalism, these other points that are also Islamophobic. So, Chief Inspector Paul Daly said, that's from the police, I understand this will be deeply upsetting for both the local and Muslim communities in Glasgow, and I want to reassure them we take this kind of offending seriously. Such vile graffiti is completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. We are carrying out extensive inquiries, and I am asking anyone with information about this incident to please contact us. The vandalism comes 3 weeks after a mosque in Dundee was desecrated with human excrement. A 20-year-old man was arrested in connection with the incident, which occurred at the Beit al-Mahmoud Mosque on Monday, 6th of October. Several windows were broken, and urine and faces were found in the building. And in September, a window of the Masjid Youssef in Clarkston was smashed with a metal pole while children attended classes inside. Right. Okay. So let's go to the Dundee one first, and we'll have a little look at that, and then we'll see if we can find the one for Clarkson. Right. Here we are. So this is from the Herald, one of the newspapers there, and I'm just going to click on another link, which hopefully will take us to the correct place. Here we are. Deep hurt as urine and faces desecrate a Dundee mosque. And there's Dundee. It says here, a mosque in Dundee has been broken into and desecrated with urine and faces, the latest in a series of incidents involving Scotland's Muslim community. According to a statement by the city's Ahmadiyya Muslims, that's a particular sect, the incident occurred at the Bayt al-Mahmud Mosque on Monday, the 6th of October. And that's all it says there. So we're going to try to look at the story somewhere else. So I went down a few pathways to try to find more stories about the Islamophobia in Scotland. I had heard about the Glasgow Central Mosque, the Dundee Mosque, and the one in a place called Clarkson, which is in the Glasgow area. However, only one of those is in the mainstream media, and that's the Glasgow one from a few days ago. So I came across this. This is a PDF short booklet from a company called MEND. That's MEND. And we'll look at who they are just in a moment. But they've produced this leaflet which says Rising Islamophobia in Scotland and Media Silence. So let's have a look and see what they say. Right, Rising Islamophobia in Scotland and Media Silence. So first of all, this is produced by MEND, which is Muslim Engagement and Development, a not-for-profit company that helps to empower and encourage British Muslims within local communities to be more actively involved in British media and politics. We're not going to read through all of this, but we are going to take an interest. Now, you can see here in this very first picture, we have Elgin Mosque. Elgin, that's a place towards the north of Scotland. Someone's drawn a swastika and written a nasty word next to that, pedo, which is, of course, short for pedophilia, or perhaps something related to that. Okay, maybe accusing someone of being a pedophile. There's no reports of this in any of the media searches which I did in making this podcast. So we're just going to read through to see what other evidence they have. Here we are, Rising Islamophobia in Scotland and Media Silence. Let's read through this one. Scotland has witnessed an alarming rise in violent Islamophobic incidents in 2025, including multiple attacks on mosques. Yet, despite their severity, national media coverage has been late, limited, and often superficial. This lack of serious reporting contributes to a dangerous narrative that Islamophobia is isolated and disconnected from wider far-right mobilization. Failure to document these incidents not only undermines public awareness, but also weakens policy responses and emboldens, that means makes perpetrators bolder, emboldens perpetrators. And that's from Lindsay Taylor. Right, so let's just scroll up here a little bit. For Muslims in Scotland, the silence of the media is an additional harm alongside the violence itself. Every time an attack is brushed aside, communities are left to carry their pain alone, sending the message that our safety and dignity are seen as less important, that silence fuels fear, isolates victims, and normalizes Islamophobia. Okay, so here we have the true stories of how many incidents there's been so far this year. So Greenock, that was in January, a Hitler-inspired 16-year-old. 5 shops and religious centres were targeted with racist, Islamophobic posters. You know, I'm so much in the habit of hearing the word homophobic. Islamophobic is, well, it was more unusual, but certainly becoming very normal these days. So Islamophobic posters. Aberdeen, the Aberdeen Mosque in the Islamic Centre, was vandalised with white paint and a rock thrown. March, online extremism. A Scottish youth was exposed running a Discord server where children discussed killing Muslims. Glasgow, March 2024, a 13-year-old boy walking home from a local mosque was subjected to racial abuse before being brutally attacked. Elgin is the one that we noticed a moment ago. Alloa, a mosque, was set on fire on purpose. Dundee, that was in August. Convicted murderer Stuart Cochrane was jailed after threatening to kill all Muslims and assassinate the Prime Minister. Newton Mans, a young Muslim schoolgirl, was assaulted by a male as she was walking home from school. Of course, we have the Glasgow one that we mentioned a moment ago, and there was one in my town, I think last year or the year before as well, in our local mosque. Okay, so I'm just scrolling up here. It says, these are not isolated incidents, but part of a broader trend of far-right activity in Scotland, coinciding with anti-asylum protests and the rise of extremist political rhetoric. Okay, and it says here, Elgin Mosque has been targeted in repeated Islamic attacks. Yes, I believe Dundee also, I think another one of their mosques was attacked in 2019. So you can see here, this really sets out a pattern. Right, what else do we have? I'm just scrolling up as we're speaking. It says here, limited visual evidence, impact of poor coverage, media silence, delay and minimization. I'm sure this is not the media ignoring these events, but certainly it's not giving these events the priority that they need in order to feel protected. Let's move on a little bit. Right. These gaps in coverage and recognition have real consequences. Silencing communities, distorted narratives, dangerous silence, and policy implications. A striking feature of recent incidents is the involvement of teenagers. And then the story goes on to talk about far-right anti-immigration activism in Scotland. You can see here there's another message on a wall: say no to Islam, stop the boats. You see, people in their minds are making a connection that all immigrants somehow are Islamic. I don't quite know where that comes from, but you can see that's the message is coming across by linking the boats, the asylum seekers, and mentioning the name of religion as well. But these two things are not actually connected, especially since a lot of asylum seekers are coming from Africa. It's true that there perhaps are some Muslims in Africa, but that doesn't mean that everyone who's coming is Muslim. Right. So they're saying here that there's a cross-party group. Recommendations have been made for mandatory faith literacy for journalists and student teachers, stronger strategies to monitor and counter Islamophobic content online, formal adoption of the APPG definition of Islamophobia, I don't know what that is, recognizing it as a form of racism. Okay. Media reform, government action. It goes on to say youth and online interventions, community engagement, funding, and security support. And in conclusion, it says Scotland is experiencing a rise in Islamophobic violence, yet media and government responses remain slow and inadequate. Mosque attacks, youth radicalization, and community trauma are too often minimized, sending a dangerous message that Islamophobia is tolerated. This is not an isolated problem. It is racism and extremism. Scotland must act now to ensure the safety and equality of its Muslim citizens. Now, I'm just going to put this here so you can go to their Facebook, our Instagram, a YouTube, LinkedIn, or X, or visit their website at mend.org.uk. This is a charity, and if you could support them, that would be great. Everyone, at least here in the West, has a perfect right to go to whatever place of worship they want without any fear of intimidation, without any fear of hatred, and without any fear of criminal activity. And I think absolutely, I will be following Mend on Facebook to see what they are doing. It seems to be, well, the only voice who's speaking up in this time of great darkness, at least in Scotland. Right, okay. Now, just some other things. Yes, I just wanted to say that, of course, I'm very supportive of all minorities. Everyone has a right to practice whatever religion they want and to live in peace. What I'm surprised about, though, is up until now, Scotland was regarded as one of the most welcoming places for immigrants. Just a few years ago, in Glasgow, there were some very famous pictures of Scottish people stopping a man being detained in order to be deported. There were pictures of him being protected by Scottish people. But it looks like these opinions are changing, that somehow or other Scotland now may be having a backlash against Islam. But to be honest with you, Scottish people in the UK are amongst the least religious now. Scotland is one of the most atheist countries. So people here don't really like religion, its expression, or talking about it. But I like to think that Scottish people are at least open-minded enough to be tolerant. After all, that is the law of the land. So it's very interesting, isn't it? All of these things, just to see what's happening in the changing face of the UK. Now, I've just chosen one small part of the UK to show you, but I can assure you that Islamophobia these days is rife, and that means very common up and down the country. A few weeks ago, some people died in a synagogue, that's the Jewish place of worship. And I think that's a real tragedy. I really think our minorities can help us to learn how to live in peace. And I think because my parents' generation, who lived through the war, they learned the hard way about accepting and loving everyone. Now that they're disappearing, the lessons they taught us are being lost. And hatred, it looks like, is once again rising. So We have to do everything we can in order to propagate peace. It doesn't matter whether you agree with the politics of immigration or not. Everyone has a perfect right to go to any place of worship, to sit there and acknowledge their God. This is the freedom that we live under. Well, I really hope this little podcast has opened your mind a little bit so you could see what's currently happening here in the UK. I really hope things calm down, but we do have what we call extremist politics at the moment. So, to be honest with you, I have a horrible feeling this is going to get worse before it gets better. And if we don't defend our right to be diverse, if we don't defend others who live here, then it's only a matter of time before a majority comes for the rest of us. So it's very important that we protect everyone and try to live in peace. Well, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's talk soon. Bye.